Did I scare you? I should have. That's what it's all about. Welcome back to Ghost Stories Live. This is our True Ghost Stories segment, and it is being hosted by our ghost expert, ANDREA JANES, and she has a special guest today, DAN STURGES, but I will let her tell you more about that. ANDREA, please.
Hi all, I'm not going to be mic'd because I'm only going to speak very briefly, just to introduce myself. Okay, I will do this. So I'm Andrea, and I am the author of Burrows of the Dead, a book of short horror stories based in and around New York City. It's also for sale at the back. CJ will hook you up. And I'm also a tour guide with Ghosts of New York, so I definitely think I know a lot about true haunts and horrors. But next to this guy, I'm an amateur, because this is Dan Sturges. He is a paranormal investigator. He runs Sturges Paranormal, and he has had access to some of the most notorious haunted places in this city, like the Belasco Theater, the Ed Sullivan Theater, the restaurant One by Land, Two by Sea, and the Merchant's House, all very haunted places. He's also been on the Today Show, the Letterman Show, Sci-Fi Channel, all this stuff. And last time I heard him share some of his true ghost stories, it scared the hell out of me. So, Dan, go for it.
Thank you. Made me sound very cool. It's all downhill from here now. So, well, thank you. Thank you. This is the first time I've worked with bubbles, so that's very cool. Thank you. Yes, I'm a paranormal investigator, and despite what you see on TV with a lot of the guys running around, it's much different than they portray on the television or in movies. It's a lot more boring. My friend Larry's here. He can attest to that. Larry Hewitt's also a paranormal investigator that I work with all the time. It's incredibly boring. Yes, yes. And we also co-host a radio show together on Monday nights. We're playing Beef on it tonight. But paranormal investigating is much more boring than you would see on TV. And it's really, at this point, when I'm doing it's really not that scary. I've had, that being said, I did spend an evening in a bombing room and a funeral parlor upstate. So I mean, there are some creepy aspects of this. But for the most part, it's become a little mundane. Every once in a while, you'll have an experience at a location that really keeps people like Larry and I from coming back. The Merchant's House Museum, I'll play some EVP, which we'll get into that in just a second. The Merchant's House Museum, which is just a couple of blocks south of here. It's 29 East 4th Street between Bowery and Lafayette. I've been investigating the Merchant's House for, I think it's 6 years now. And I try and get in. Last year I went every month. I try and get in every couple of months, do an investigation. And if I were to pick a place in the city that is the most haunted, I know we're going to talk about that later, I would have to say, in my experience, it's been the Merchant's House Museum. They almost have phenomena happening there daily. So if you do get a chance to go down there, and October is a really busy month for them. They have ghost tours, and they bring people in, and they have a whole setup for the ghost tour. So it's really interesting and a lot of fun. There was some of the stuff that Larry and I have captured in. But tonight I brought some pretty good examples of EVP. If you watched any of the ghost shows, you've heard people talk about EVP. EVP stands for Electronic Voice Phenomena. And what that is voices or noises, music sometimes, that is recorded onto recording media, onto a device, but not heard at the time of the recording. You only hear it later on when you're reviewing your data. EVP has been around since the invention of recording media. People have been picking up EVP for as long as they've been able to record noise. In fact, Thomas Edison was working on a recorder that would only pick up ghost voices or spirits of the dead, voices of the dead. So I'll play some examples, some pretty good examples. I'm not going to tell you what I think the voices say. I'll let you guys try and figure that out, and we'll go back and we'll replay it. This first one I'm going to play, it's from a house out in California. I was out in shooting a television pilot out in California, and they had a bunch of investigators out there. We were getting pretty bored. There was a lot of stuff going on, and production-wise, really not much going on in the house. One of the paramedics that has to be on set said he was in a room, in the laundry room, and he felt a door jiggling. So they called the ghost guys. We all went out into this room. A fellow, Chris Fleming, I don't know if anybody knows Chris Fleming. He's pretty popular on the TV shows. He pulled pulled out his recorder and he asked a question, if you could hear my voice, please speak into this recorder. So we'll play number 2, you'll hear Chris, and then you'll hear a voice after that.
Can you speak right now to this recorder? Can you hear my voice?
Did you guys hear that right in the back?
Play it again.
Want to play that number 2 again?
Can you speak right now to this recorder? Can you hear my voice?
Yes, I'm over here.
Yes, with headphones, you can really hear it well with headphones. I think it says, I believe it says, yes, look over here. And if you play number 3 is just the EVP, just the voice, and it's gone through some filtering, so it's a little bit easier to hear.
I just did a BP.
EVP depends.
No, number 1.
Number 1?
New suit. Time.
Yes, I'm here. It's really creepy. Whenever I hear them, I feel shivers.
Yeah, that was we were in a room. They had about 25 people in a circle. We're in this tiny little room. There were about 5 or 6 cameras. There were about 5 or 6 recorders going, and this was the only recorder that picked up that voice. We went back and reviewed the tape. Nobody was talking. Nobody leaned over and whispered into Chris's recorder. It's a legit EVP. Now EVPs go in classes A, being something that you really don't need to manipulate. B, being you might have to bump it up a little bit. And C is really hard to hear. You can hear it with headphones. That would be an example of like an A or an A minus. It's a pretty clear EVP. The next one, you know what? I'm going to play number 5. That's cool. This one is from Eastern State Penitentiary, which is a penitentiary in Philadelphia, which was just down a couple weeks ago. This EVP I caught a couple of years ago. I was down there again working for a television show with a group here from New York, and I was pretty sure one of the guys was faking stuff. Because every time this character was around, we would get something extraordinary, and that never ever happens. So I was pretty sure that this son of a bitch was faking stuff and wrecking my reputation. So I was going to catch him tonight. I set up a pretty powerful microphone in the oldest cell block of Eastern State Penitentiary under a toilet and left it alone. I told everybody that was there where this microphone was. I was kind of trying to bait this guy. What I didn't tell everybody is that I also set up a night vision camera right in front of the cell. So we separated, and I told everybody, please don't walk down this hall. Please don't walk down this hall, hoping that he would, because then I was going to make him walk home. And but about an hour and a half later, I came back and retrieved recorded it directly onto a computer. And what should have been just a flat line on the audio program, because there should have been no noise that would give it little bumps. Sure enough, after about 20-25 minutes, there were these little bumps. Listened to it with headphones and heard what we'll play for you right now. So this is number 5. Anybody have any guesses what it says? Sorry?
I'm cold.
Cold? I think with headphones, it really sounds clear. It sounds like it says my house twice, and then the last thing you hear is my home. Can you play that one more time? Now, if you can imagine, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, you're in this penitentiary, and I hear this on the headphones, and I get up, and I'm like, all right, I got this guy, cold busted. And I went and I grabbed my camera, which should have had him walking down the corridor. Everything's time-stamped, and sure enough, at that time, nobody had walked up and down that hallway. Because we were working with a television program, everything was time-stamped, and we were able to document where everybody was at the time of that recording. That recording had happened a little after midnight. So it wasn't this fella. I had to drive him home, and pretty good example of what I would call a place memory haunting. The guys on the TV show call it residual hauntings, which is not necessarily a ghost who's walking around going to the bathroom and sees my microphone, but I think it's some energy that was left over in this in the Eastern State Penitentiary, and for whatever the reasons, the atmosphere, the conditions were right for this energy to be released, and this energy just plays over and over. I don't know if we would have heard that had we been there. That's never happened to me. One time in the Merchant's House, but the first EVP that I played would be an example of what we call an intelligent haunting or an apparitional haunting, which is a spirit is communicating with you and there is some kind of interaction, whether it's an answer to a question or if you ask somebody to move the cord on the microphone and the cord of the microphone moves. That would be what we would consider an apparitional haunting or an intelligent haunting. The next EVP, which isn't really a voice, it's number 4, and this was recorded at the Merchant's House Museum last summer. We were all in the main bedroom, or Seabury's room. He was the owner of the house. Really hot, and I had brought a friend who she was asking questions. She had never been on an investigation before, which I find really advantageous to bring somebody who's never been on an investigation. One, it's really cool to watch them when something does happen, because a lot of times they freak out. And two, this kind of energy of somebody who's excited to be on their first paranormal investigation and they're waiting for something to happen, I feel helps things along and puts a really kind of good energy. And if there is some kind of spirit or ghost haunting that room, they might want to interact with that person. They've seen me a bunch of times, and maybe they're tired of talking to me. Maybe they'll talk to this girl, Stephanie, who's in this clip. So we'll play number 4. You'll hear a noise. We're not listening for any kind of voices.
Does somebody want these lights turned off?
What was that?
What was that, Dan? Did you do that?
My favorite part.
What was the question that you just asked? Does somebody want these lights turned off?
I keep seeing a flickering out of my first.
You know, Stephanie, she's never at a loss for words, so it's nice to hear it get stuck out of the eye.
I'm making it out of my head, I don't know.
Now, what I think that is, again, this was at the Merchant's House, and I don't think that was a spirit communicating with us. What it sounded like a door slamming. Now, we're in a room where all the doors were shut. There's no doors to slam. It sounded like it came from a closet that I was sitting in front of. I jumped up, it scared me, it startled me, and as well as everybody else in the room. I think that is more an example. You'll hear people talk about poltergeist phenomena with the movie Poltergeist. Poltergeist phenomena doesn't necessarily have anything to do with spirits or ghosts or apparitions. It's more coming from, people describe it as a mental temper tantrum. It's some kind of recurring spontaneous psychokinesis in the field they call RSPK. Stephanie, as it turns out, is among her friends. They all know that she can walk down the street and the street lights, when she walks by them, will pop out. She goes through hair dryers like crazy. She has some kind of thing going on. She calls it her electromagnetism. But for whatever reason, a lot of electronics malfunction when they're around Stephanie. Yeah, Karen, exactly. That was all BK. But this is a really cool example of what I think is some kind of psychokinesis or some kind of mental fit. That while Stephanie was trying to be calm, cool, and collected, on the inside she had a lot of personal stuff going on in her life, and I think this was more of an expression of that, and just made a noise in the room, which is pretty significant. Maybe pee my pants a little bit. But and then we'll move to number 7 is an EVP that I caught the Bartow-Pell mansion, which is in the Bronx, New York. It's a beautiful, beautiful mansion. It was built in the 1840s. It was the summer home for a couple of mayors, but they were having small kind of little were having small kind of little phenomena happening, but I wanted to go in there. They didn't call me. I reached out to them because I wanted to go to an old historic home that I hadn't heard of any reports of phenomena and see if I couldn't get something cooking there. We went there a number of times. Larry's been there with us, and a beautiful place. But now, as we're starting to go there more often, we're starting to pick up these little examples of EVP. So you'll hear a docent. This is well into the night. Larry, I'm not sure that you were there. We were in one of the bedrooms that the docents will say in the middle of the day there'll be the impression of a person in this bed. Now, ghosts don't have bodies, so they can't make a depression on a bed. I think it's just the bed sagging after they fix it for the day, and it sags in the middle. But we did get a pretty good answer to a question, and I'll let you guys see if you can figure out what it says. Play number 7.
Who sits on the bed? Are you sitting there now?
Actually, play number 8. Number 8 is the same recording, but bumped up a little bit.
Who sits on the bed? Are you sitting there now?
You guys hear what sounds like a man's voice?
Yeah.
What do you think it says? Nathan Walker.
Who sits on the bed? Are you sitting there now?
That's not cool.
Well, we haven't been able to figure out if there was a Nathan Walker connected to the house, but there is the Walker family. There was an artist who did all the portraits for the family, and their last name is Walker. And up until now, in case they've figured they've turned something up since the last time I've been there, we haven't been able to connect Nathan Walker to that family. But apparently he's hanging out in his bedroom and laying on the bed in the middle of the day. And that's all the EVP that I have brought with me. So if you guys, or if anybody has any questions.
I have a question.
Shoot.
One thing, logic. If you could hear the bump sound when the doors crack, and the microphone picks up the same frequencies as you're hearing, how come you can't hear the voices until you play them back up the recorder?
Because I don't believe when the voices, I don't believe that those voices are causing any kind of sound waves. That a spirit or a ghost, if he's in the room and he is interacting with us and talking, he doesn't have the tools to create sound waves. So that voice has to be imprinted on this recording media psychokinetically through PK. Now, there are lots of people, and I haven't been lucky enough to have this happen to me, but they have, there's plenty of examples of people before digital media came out. They would bring cassette tapes. They would put them in a room, still wrapped up, still unopened, play them after investigation, and get answers to questions on the cassette tape that hadn't even run through a recorder. I do part of my investigations. I will record with all my recorders, and I'll disengage a microphone on one of my recorders to see if I can't capture something not using the microphone. I've gotten some strange noises, but I haven't had any words yet. So, but the only way that a spirit can communicate or make any kind of impression on these digital devices is through PK, is through psychokinesis. Yeah, it's a great question. It's really far out there, but it really is. I mean, people have, PK has been, I don't want to say it's been proven in the laboratory, but there are plenty of examples of people using PK in a laboratory setting and being able to manipulate physical things, have things move across tables. Yeah.
Have you been on Coast to Coast?
No, I haven't. I was supposed to be, but I got bumped.
Curious.
Drag. But man. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Your favorite place you've ever went to?
Pardon me?
What is your favorite place you've ever went to?
My favorite place, well, I have to say, there's a big special place in my heart for the Merchants House Museum. They've been so open with me and really have taken me in as a member of the family, and they're so open-minded to letting guys like Larry and I come in there and poke around there in the middle of the night. They are, a government-funded, by the state museum, an accredited museum, and they really, went out on a limb and risked a lot of that funding by saying, I think we've got ghosts in our house, and we're going to have a guy like Dan Sturges come in every month and ask silly questions in rooms when there's nobody there. So they've really embraced this aspect of the home, and they use it. You know, they ask questions during an EVP session. What was the original color of the walls? And so they're trying to use the spirits to help them decorate.
How did you get into this line of work?
Well, I wish I could call it work. You don't get paid for this, but hey, I'd always, and I think this is something that we talked about briefly. It was ghosts and spirits are something that we all have in common. When you're little, and you shut the lights out, there's somebody under your bed, or there's somebody in the closet, or you hear somebody walking down the hall, and you grow out of that. Some of us, most of us. But it was something that I was always into. I was always into like the UFO thing, and all my reports when I was little were on the Loch Ness Monster, and the ghost stuff always held a big interest for me. And I got out of it for a long time. I moved into the city here, and I was involved in acting, and I did that for a very long time. And I was a big Civil War buff, and I would go visit all the Civil War battlefields on the East Coast. And every battlefield has a haunted bed and breakfast. So I said, what the hell? I was saying a haunted bed and breakfast. And I bumped into a group of people that were doing an investigation in Gettysburg. And I said, wow, that's kind of cool. I didn't know that there were people out there doing this. And that kind of got me into meeting the right people. I meet cool people like Larry and who take it serious and have a lot of fun. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, I have a question. You already asked me. And were you ever recording or trying to, and you swore you heard something and it did not record?
It doesn't get recorded? No, that hasn't happened. Anything I've heard, which they'll call, direct voice phenomena, DVP, and they've got all these acronyms for things. But anything that I would consider paranormal that I was actually hearing at the time, well, I was able to record. I recorded it. That's a great question, though. But that has happened. What happens more often is the reverse of that, where we will get an EVP on one recorder, and on 4 other recorders we won't get an EVP. Similar recorders, sometimes the same recorder, everything, all the settings are all the same, and it just won't come out on one particular recorder.
Are there certain people that can hear things that are recorded that other people in the room can't hear that have that ability? Can you verify it?
Not verified. I'm sure there are, and not in my experience. I think that there are people. Chris Fleming, the very first EVP that we played, Chris Fleming claims to be a psychic. I don't believe that he is, but he is an EVP magnet. Wherever he goes, he can pull out a recorder or pull out his phone with a recorder on it, and he'll get EVP. And I'll go, Chris, do it right now, and I'll watch it because I want to make sure he's not faking. And he'll do it, and we'll play it back, and he'll have a freaking EVP right at that moment. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yep.
Did you ever have anything threatening?
Threatening?
Yeah.
No, I never have. It's and that comes up, and that's a it's a strange question for me because the TV and movies have really made like spirits evil.
Hype it up.
Pardon me?
They hype it up.
Yeah, and you have to. You have to. It's entertainment, and you have to. In my experience, I've never felt threatened. I've been startled. And things that you don't understand, you're scared of, so they become evil. But it's just because you don't understand it, I feel. So I've never felt threatened. I have jumped plenty of times, and I've wanted to leave places, but I've never felt threatened. I know that Larry's been on investigations where he felt threatened, and somebody might have been pushed down the stairs. Just once. And which, just once. But once would be enough. But
Usually they're all right.
yeah. I mean, spirits or ghosts are people who don't have a body. And if you got a guy when he's alive who's an asshole, pretty good chance he's still going to be an asshole. He might even be more of one. But when people pass on, they don't learn the secrets of the universe. They don't get smarter. They don't get dumber. They don't get angrier or meaner. They just don't have a body. So, but I've never felt threatened. I've never felt threatened. Somebody was over there.